Hi everyone, and welcome to our sociology session as part of our main event today. I'm going to pass over to Dr. Paul Campbell shortly, who's going to be leading the session today. But I just wanted to encourage you all, as we're in the session, to drop any questions that you might have into the Q&A. I'm going to be there the whole time, monitoring all your questions and publishing them ready for the end of the session. So don't be afraid to pop anything in there as we're going along. But without further ado, I'll pass over to Paul, who can run the session for today.
Great, thanks Sarah, and hello and welcome to our sociology talk. So I'm Dr. Paul Campbell, but just call me Paul. So what we're going to do in the talk today is really cover sort of three things: the kind of context of what it's like to be at Leicester and a little bit about the university, obviously the course and kind of how it works, what the kinds of things we're going to study, and the ways in which that also relates to employability and pathways after the degree. But I suppose the best place really to start, and it would be rude not to if I didn't introduce myself. So we're going to spend the first sort of couple of minutes just me introducing myself as your recruitment lead and as your first point of contact through the program. Okay, so let's see if this works. So great. Okay, so getting to know your admissions tutor in 5 minutes or thereabouts. So, okay, if you haven't already told from my accent, I grew up in London, in a place in East London, a place called Newham, really diverse. Probably, I think it's actually one of the most, or if not the most diverse borough in the country. And my parents were first generation African Caribbeans, and I grew up in around about the kind of the 1980s. And as a child growing up in the 1980s, my report said, yeah, I'm not bad at school, but ultimately I discovered football and loved playing football. And as you can see from the picture, I grew up at a time when shorts were short. So I played football and I loved football. And despite being really bright as a young working class, young black man from a African Caribbean household, I just was mad with football. So what that actually meant is I actually left school without any GCSEs to speak of. But that was fine because I was going to play football and be a professional footballer. And that's what I did. So I left school and I signed for the local football club, professional football club. But then typically, almost cliche, I got injured and then I got released and then found myself as a mature student or thinking what I'm doing. And as a mature student, going back to college and then to university to be a PE teacher. And as you can clearly see, that didn't work out particularly well. So what happened was I discovered sociology. I took sociology as a minor and really fell for the subject and thought, okay, well, despite doing really well in my degree and people saying to me, Paul, you should really do a PhD and go into academia. Again, being the first from my family to go to university, etc., I thought, people that do PhDs are not people like me. People like me don't do that. I didn't even know where my university was growing up. So I went and taught, and I was a secondary school teacher for a while, and I taught kind of sociology and philosophy and ethics, and there's my first A-level group there. But I had the bug for sociology. So I then again went back and then kind of did my PhD, and my PhD focused, interestingly, on young minority ethnic children, education incompatibilities and sport. And there's me graduating, and since then my work has focused in that area. And as a selfless plug, if you want to join me on Wednesday, I'm doing a book launch on my latest book on professional footballers retirement. But anyway, why am I sharing this? This isn't just a Freudian confessional. What I want to say, what I really want to illustrate here is that firstly, sociology really gives us the tools to understand our lives, our places in it, and then the skills, not only to understand that more broadly, but also the employability skills to go into careers. I never thought the things that interested me, like social justice, like education, would translate into careers, and sociology enables us to do that. The second point, which is really core, is that actually lots of your lecturers here are people just like you. We have come from various routes into academia. We understand the things that you're going through, and really placing the student and your needs and the things that you find interesting and making and helping you get the skills to move on into employment or into academia is at the heart of what we do in the sociology program. So that should be about 5 minutes. Moving on to the program. So, right, why Leicester? There's lots of reasons to come and study at Leicester, talking about the university and pretty much the city. But for me, the really kind of key point that jumps out is the 94% employability. You know, we understand, and it's important, you know, this is about helping you move on into your next stage of life. So ultimately, yeah, employability is a central part of what we do in our program, and I'll talk about that more as we go through the talk. The other thing is third most affordable city. Again, particularly if you're coming from larger cities, again, you know, affordability, being able to do your degree and live in a city without having to being able to balance those kinds of demands. You know, I remember myself being a student having to work 2 jobs whilst through my degree. Those kinds of things are important considerations for us. But so that's generally a bit about the program. Why study sociology at Leicester? Well, ultimately, not only so. The thing that I really am really proud of is that studying sociology, that we have an even higher percentage than the average of the university in terms of employability. So within 6 months of our degree, within 6 months of completing the degree, our students are within further education or employment, 97% of them. Importantly here then, you also work with staff members who are leading academics and are actually doing current research and pushing the conversation at the moment. So not only are you kind of just academics here, but you'll be working directly with them, not only just teaching, or not just in terms of them teaching you, but there's opportunities in your dissertation to work with them on mutual projects. We've also got the study abroad option, obviously for things like with taking into consideration health and safety. This year that hasn't happened, but actually by the time you start, that we're hoping that program is back up and running, and that includes a year abroad option. The other thing that I really like about Leicester, and I think actually is something that's often kind of overlooked, it's one of the largest cities in the East Midlands, but it's also small enough to keep that community feel. Leicester's really, really nice because actually one of the nice things you can do is you can just walk into the city and you can meet your friends. Now, trying to do that in London, where I was growing up, you couldn't do that. You know, unless you had sort of some military style pre kind of arrangement for where you were going to meet, you couldn't just wander into the West End and catch up with your friends. So actually it's big enough to feel like a city, but small enough to have that community so that you feel familiar and that actually you feel a part of it. One thing I will say whilst I'm talking is, again, any questions that you have, jot them down, put them in the chat function, and we'll cover them as we go through. So the other thing that I really want to do is talk about our heritage and talk about what it means to be, or the kind of backdrop of the sociology department that you'll be joining or thinking about joining. So our history dates back nearly sort of 70 years in a couple of years' time, and we have produced a large number of really important voices. Some of you will be familiar with kind of Anthony Giddens, and particularly his textbooks, which seem to keep on producing edition after edition. And Anthony Giddens was one of our most high-profile academics, but also we've got academics that are really doing important work today. So in the bottom right hand corner, you'll see Jackie Sanchez Taylor, and her work is really pushing the envelope on things like the international sex trade, which looks at the ways in which often Western tourism exploits areas such as in East Asia, or such as in the Caribbean or in the South America, where young people are often exploited through kind of the sex tourism. And she does lots of work with government and organizations helping to eradicate and highlight those kinds of practices. But really, our legacy is not about the bricks and mortar that we have or the academics that we are. Our legacy is really the fantastic students that we produce. And that is, for me, that's the kind of most important thing about our program. So my wife, she works in a law firm in HR. And when they get a student and they've got that they've studied at Leicester on their CV, they take notice. They know that the students that we that come through Leicester are really high caliber, really rounded, and really excellent young developed people. And so actually, at the front of everything that we do, we know we're only as good as our alumni, only as good as the students that we produce. And that's why actually everything we do is geared to helping you maximize your talents. Okay, so, and as I've captured there, really our heritage is not the legacy of academics, but it's the legacy of the people that we produce. Okay, so the other thing that I just want to finish saying about kind of studying around in the university kind of sociology before we talk about the actual course is, well, actually one of the things that really summarize the program is that studying Leicester is really about a sociology of communities. On one level, you'll join Leicester is the most diverse city in the East Midlands. So you're joining a really diverse community and being part of the city. But also you're joining an academic community. You're joining us and becoming part of our extension of our academic, of our legacy. You're joining a vibrant student community that has various kind of activities, various committees, various groups. So sporting student communities, chess, debate societies, decolonizing the curriculum societies, a whole host. So you'll be part of that. And this kind of diverseness is reflected in our program, because our program is geared to actually recognizing that people are individuals. What you want from sociology is tailored to, or needs to be tailored to, what you want. And also the fact that we have a really diverse population, and that actually our program has to reflect the student body that we have. So with that then, let's talk a little bit about how the program works. So, okay, so how is your degree structured here? Ultimately then, the degree, you will get 300, or you have to get 360 credits. And that's over the course of the 3 years. Now, how does that translate and what does that actually mean? So, in effect, each year you have to get 120 credits to progress onto the next year. So from the first year, you get 120 credits, second year, 120 credits, and then third year, 120 credits, and that adds up to 360 credits. What this means is that these credits break down into modules. So each module is worth a certain amount of credits, ranging between 15 and 20. So in the first year, to get your 120 credits, you will pass 6 core modules, and we talk about them in a bit more detail a bit later. In the second year, you'll have 4 core modules that you'll have to pass and 4 optional modules. And in the third year, 3 core modules and 4 optional modules. What does this look like? So in effect, you have 2 11-week semesters. And they run, semester 1 runs from September, well, the end of September through to December. And then the second semester runs sort of from January to the end of March, depending on where Easter falls. Usually you'll have about 3 or 4 modules per semester. And generally the exam periods fall after that second semester between April and June. Now these are some of the kind of technical stuff, but ultimately just how the program is structured. What does that mean? So, as I said, so you get about between 3 and 4 modules each semester. So that means you'll be studying 3 or 4 different topics per week for the first 11 weeks and then per week for the second 11 weeks. Each week, each module consists of 2 lectures for 1 hour and 1 seminar. You'll also have, for example, on my race module that I take, they have 2-hour lectures, 1-hour seminar, and a 1-hour drop-in session directly with me, where we talk about the content that we've covered, and we explain and discuss further around those points. You'll also get opportunities to have open door policy. So in addition to that, your lecturers have 4 hours where you can just drop in and talk to them about what you like. In addition to that, there's also you're also given independent tasks. So basically what that means is generally there's about 8 hours, well, 4 hours direct contact and another maybe double that in terms of the independent study that you'll do per module per week. I'm going through this quite quickly, so please, if any of this doesn't kind of make sense or you want some more expansion on that, please ask in the Q&A session. Okay, right, so I've talked a little bit about the college and the university, talked a little bit about how the degree is structured. So let's talk about now, in effect, the kinds of things that you'll be studying here on the program. Okay, so as I said, each year is broken up. So the first year is broken up into a number of modules, second year, and so on. Now, this is where our degree is quite different, because in the first year, what you have is 6 core modules. And what this means is these are 6 modules that you have to do. You don't have an option. They are just kind of the foundational subjects. And what they do is they will give you the kind of foundational knowledge that will then set you up to go into years 2 and 3. This takes the assumption that, yes, some people will have done sociology, but some people might have come onto the program from history or politics or elsewhere. So what this does is actually give you that real foundational knowledge and extends either what you've done at FE or introduces you to the key subjects. So what do we study? I'm not going to just go through all of these, but I'm just going to pick out some of the modules here. So I take the race, ethnicity and racisms in Britain, which looks at basically, in effect, racial inequalities and how society is organised, and also how we might make sense of inequalities, not just along lines of race, but also race in addition to kind of class, disability, gender, and really kind of unpacking those kinds of questions over time. Also, you'll look at ways of researching, so giving you the skills of being able to conduct your own research projects. Power, privilege and diversity, well, that starts to look at how the different groups in society, how some maybe have access or there are ways in which society might work for some groups and not necessarily work the same way for other groups. So the ways in which there are inequalities maybe along the lines of gender, maybe along the lines of disability, And then lastly, the only one I want to highlight here is sociology in practice, where we give you the skill not just to study sociology in a textbook, but how does that translate into giving you skills that you can use directly in the workforce and give you skills that are ability to take into the 21st century, either as postgraduates or as employees. Okay. Now, this is where the program gets really, really interesting, because in the second year, your core modules shrink and your optional modules expand. So in the second year, you have 4 core modules, which you have to do, and 4 optional modules. And now the thinking behind this is because, look, we recognize that, yes, you're all interested in sociology, but what you might want to use that sociology for is different. You might want to go into a different career. Chances are what I want from sociology is different to what you might want sociology in terms of where you want to go into your careers. So what that enables you to do is, yes, have a sociology degree, but actually tailor the modules to either things that you're interested in personally, either in terms of research or in terms of the careers that you want to go into. So taking into account, let's think that you might want to go into a career in social work, for example. You've got your core modules: sociology placement, doing social research, social theory explained, and using numbers. Yes, you have to do those. But if you wanted to go into social work, you might want to take the optional modules, say youth, young adulthood and society, work, employment and society, and also gender and society, giving you a better understanding of maybe the issues that different communities might face. If you wanted to go into media, you might take, for example, the politics of beauty and sociology through film and literature. So what it enables you to do is pick modules that are tailored to your own interest. And that theme continues into the third year. So in the third year, your core modules shrink to 3 modules, to sociological research, your dissertation and modern social theory, and then your optional modules expand again. Again, if you were looking at working in local government or as a social worker, you might want to take optional modules on drugs and society, or potentially the global sex trade, for example, with Jackie Sanchez Taylor. Equally, if you were interested in, for example, psychology, you might want to take the module on social psychology and get a balance there. Ultimately, the different way in which you pick the various modules is suited to you. So you leave the program with a degree that fits you. So, for example, if you wanted to then go into a place of work, you could say, yes, I've done a sociology degree and I've had specific training in these particular modules which are directly relevant to this career. And so, for example, a lot of our students maybe go into working in the police force or into working for local government. So again, being able to evidence how you've got specific training in those fields. Okay. In the third year, you also do your dissertation. So you have 2 options here. You have the traditional 10,000 word dissertation, which is where you will go out and you'll do some research on an area of interest, or you'll have the real world project, whereby you might want to do a particular report on an area that's directly related to where you might want to go into work. So, for example, if you wanted to go into teaching, you might, for example, do a real world project with a school on a particular area. So, for example, what are the stresses that NQTs face, or what are the challenges that COVID has brought for teachers today? So again, what you can do is either that traditional dissertation, or you can work with an employer to actually do a report on an area that you think might be able to be directly transferable to the area that you want to go into. So I know a student, for example, who was particularly interested in working for local, the kind of local government around homelessness. So they wanted to look at the kind of challenges that service providers face in addressing the challenges of homelessness in the city. Other projects which have included, and the dissertation can include loads of different projects. So some of the examples. So school uniform policy and self-expression, looking at the issues that young people have with around school uniform. One of my previous students last year looked at kind of what was the issues facing young black men in being able to express emotion, and his title was "First You Don't Cry, Then You Forget How To: Masculinity and Black Men in 21st Century Britain," which again he posted on his Twitter handle, and it was something that managed to get a real kind of raise the profile of it, and he's seeking work in that field, kind of addressing those kind of issues that young people have. So really, the project is fantastic because it actually gives you the chance to study something that is what you are interested in. Your entire life up until this point in education has usually been teachers telling you what to study. Here's the part where you actually, with your academics, get to study something that is driven entirely by you. Okay. So to help you do that, we have a really extensive range of fantastic academics and professionals working in a whole range of areas that support students, particularly in their dissertations, but also beyond. So the image there is at the bottom, a rather image that I'm jealous of Grace Sykes, our course director, sat on a fantastic backdrop of mountains, I think in Canada, and she's our course director. She's particularly interested in youth and transitions and vaping. So if you're particularly interested in any of those areas, you'd be working with Grace. In the top corner, in the blue shirt, here is Dr. John Williams, who is a specialist in football and football hooliganism, and actually also is one of the leaders of our unit for diversity, inclusion and community engagement, alongside Surinder Shah, who's on the far left of that image. And they do lots of work with community engagement in the local communities in Leicester. And some of the areas that our staff are specialists in are in education and training, as I said, vaping, age and generation, migration and diaspora, sociology of sport, gender and sexuality, race and ethnicity, plastic surgery and augmentation, social movements. So basically the kind of specialisms that we offer are really wide and varied, and actually enable you to study and develop your knowledge in all of these areas. Okay, so what opportunities are there, particularly in the degree? So there's obviously the study abroad option. We run a number of field trips, particularly locally, and importantly, one of the drivers of the program of sociology here is actually studying outside, not just being in the classroom, but studying more broadly, taking the skills that you have and how does that apply into the real world. The other thing which I'll mention here at this point is also, we recognize that students today are the ways in which the talents that you have are varied and don't always fit in the traditional essay exam format. So in that regard, the ways in which you're tested on these degrees on our programs are extremely varied. So you will do things like podcasts, produce MP4s, posters, yes, essays, but also portfolios, critical reflections, some exams. So really what we do is we have a whole host of ways in which you are assessed, which reflect just the kind of broad set of talent and that enable you to show all your talent in a variety of ways. Okay, how do we support you on this program? We have a number of ways of kind of making sure that your wider needs are met, because ultimately, as I said back at the start, we know, because I remember being sat where you are and going through a degree myself, as with my colleagues, we know that actually you're not going to achieve your best academically if your wider pastoral needs aren't met. If, for example, you don't feel secure, if, for example, you don't feel part of the community, or if that you're maybe feeling especially homesick, or that all the kind of varied needs, or you might have financial issues. So, what we have in place is a really wide and robust support net to meet all those wider needs, because only if you are safe and secure and happy and comfortable can you then really produce your best work. So in doing that, what we have a what we call a super tutor system, whereby you will be allocated a personal tutor who will stay with you all the way through the degree program, who will touch base with you once a week, where you can discuss any of the issues that you might be having outside of the degree. Also, we've got a really fantastic support team in the admin and welfare office, and also that they work closely with a central university support team. So there's a whole kind of wide net, as I've said, that are there to provide those wider needs. And actually that this is probably for me one of the most central parts of the program. Okay, how are we doing for time? All right, so we've got about 5 more minutes left on the talk, so let me go through. So ultimately then, employability. Of course, employability is also really core to what we do. We recognize that, look, not only is this an investment in developing you in terms of your academic ability, but actually the program is designed to give you the skills required to go into the 21st century workforce and to go into jobs that actually some of them are not even created yet. So in those skills, what are the kinds of things that you get from sociology, the transferable skills? Well, you're going to come out better at being able to kind of do research design, being able to present ideas, being able to get data and think critically, and be able to produce reports. Most jobs now require individuals to be able to get information and be able to present that to make change, whether that's local government and you're actually having to convince people to invest money in particular areas, whether that's in as a lawyer and you're having to convince an argument as a legal executive. All of these kinds of skills, being able to communicate, being able to think critically, being able to present information, being able to find information, all these kinds of things will be enhanced throughout your time here doing sociology. Okay, so then that really leads me into what kinds of jobs can you go into doing the sociology degree. Now, sociology, interestingly, gets a bit of a bad rap here because there isn't necessarily that many jobs which you say sociology. People think that sociology doesn't lend itself to many careers, but the reverse is actually true. Sociology is actually, in terms of giving you the skills, is probably one of the most widely applicable degrees and training programs for a widest range of jobs. And so ultimately the kinds of jobs that you can go into, and I'm not just going to read them all off, but things like education, teaching, social work, retail, transport, the police, journalism, probation officer, human resources, all kinds of graduate teaching assistants, recruitment consultants, RE teacher, like I did first time as well. So the course is really, really varied, and actually the skill sets that you get here, there's very few jobs that wouldn't take you with the skills that you've got. Only those kind of specialist jobs which require those specialist training. In fact, for all other jobs, sociology is dovetail with them, probably more so than most degrees. The other thing which I want to say, which is really unique here, is one of the things that we do fantastically well at Leicester is we create pathways into further education. The other, I say basically, to put it crudely, if you've got the academic talent, you've got the bug for academia, we don't want you to go anywhere else. We want you to stay and enhance our academic profile. And as such, so students that want a career in academia, we tailor pathways into careers into academia. I did my PhD here. Most of the academics here either did their PhDs or their undergraduates or had some sort of connection at Leicester. So talented individuals that are passionate about sociology and want a career in academia, we run series of programs that create pathways into a career in academia here and elsewhere. Of course, you're allowed to go where you want. We don't just keep you, but we'd like you to stay. So, for example, there's MAs that you can go directly onto. There's PGCEs that you can go directly onto here in contemporary sociology, in media, culture and society. We also have a series of graduate teacher GTAs, which are basically PhD students who are also teachers. And so we have a number of those generally, but also some specifically for different communities who maybe traditionally don't access HE. And I'm more than happy to talk more about these a bit later in the Q&A. So how do you get on? Apply through the general UCAS and apply through UCAS, and it's 3 Bs at A level or equivalent. But if you're unsure, please speak to us. Ultimately, we recognise, if this summer showed us anything, that life gets in the way. If for any reason you're unsure of the qualifications that you get or what you've been predicted, and for anything gets in the way, please talk to us first. We understand, as I said, the realities that you're coming from, and ultimately, we're here to help. So don't think, I'm worried I won't get those 3 Bs, that's the end of the road. No, please come and talk to us. Okay, so why Leicester? We're student focused, fantastic team, and with staff that are like you, and we understand where you're coming from and we can relate. Also, here we have pathways into education and employment at our hearts. There's the details about emailing us and contacting us. Please stay in touch. The last thing I'm going to say is that there are some scholarships that help in terms of maybe reducing some of the fees, or, for example, paying for half your tuition fees at various points. And there's a competition that basically what you do is you upload a video in response to the question of why do you want change? Why is social justice something that you're passionate about? And the top 100, the 100 that win the competition are eligible for some sort of financial support. But again, look centrally at the university. I've finished here. Thank you for listening to me, and I'm going to pass over back to Sarah.
Thank you so much for that, Paul. That was really informative, and I hope that the students found that really useful. We've actually had a couple of questions come through. So I'll start off with the first one, which is about how the course has been adapted for the current situation. So would you be able to explain the balance between online and on-campus learning, and sort of how that might change given, the COVID situation and the future of that?
So I just unmuted myself there. Sorry. So, okay. Great. Thanks, Sarah. So, yeah, brilliant question. Well, what we do is we do a combination of blended learning. So, for example, this year, on my race module, we have, or not just on my race module, but across, we have a combination of pre-recorded lectures, depending on the size of the lecture. So if it's a core module and there's maybe 60 students, we pre-record them because, fitting up 60 students into a room is just not compatible with health and safety. So, but what we do is we then have live seminars, which are smaller sessions whereby we unpack the lecture content. And so ultimately they are a combination of either live sessions like this or face-to-face sessions on campus. And equally, the drop-in sessions are a combination of live face-to-face sessions, either remotely or in person. But fantastic question. And ultimately, we are always reviewing that because, at our heart, we kind of want as much face-to-face where possible. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks for that, Paul. Really good information on that as well. And that, like you said, that is a kind of our model that we're looking to adapt as and when things need to change. Another note which I'm really passionate about is about year abroad. So I actually did a year abroad as part of my degree, and someone's asked what the most popular destinations are for the study abroad programme, if you could answer that.
That's a fantastic question, and I'll have to be completely honest. I don't have statistics as to what are the most popular, but the US, and we have various options across Europe. Really, it's a case of, as I say, it's really kind of individual. So students go wherever they want for a whole host of reasons. Some will go because they've got family in that particular part of the world, or because there's something on that program or course that they're interested in. So I couldn't give you a definitive place, but kind of the US and across Europe are some of the destinations which immediately come to mind where I know students have gone before. Thanks, Sarah.
No problem. If you want to double check that, then you can go onto our website, and we have a virtual version of our prospectus, as well as getting your prospectus delivered. And in the prospectus for every course, we list all of the year abroad country options as well. So if you want to double check that and see which countries are available, then all of that is on there. But for those of you that are considering it, I would 100% recommend. Definitely the best year of my life so far. So I'm a big promoter of the year abroad and that as an option. We've also just had a question come through on the basis of, year abroad and year in industry. Are students able to take a year in industry as part of the sociology degree?
This year, the program, the year abroad, because of the COVID, is not running this year. What we've done is ultimately it used to be a semester, and we're now moving into the entire year as of 2021. So in terms of industry, again, I'm not sure. I can get back to you. I'd like that person if they could give me their email. At the moment, I'm confident and certain in the study abroad option. In terms of the employability, again, what I would say is that there's lots of, I think there's the study abroad, I can't think what it's called, option on the open day where they can kind of inform you much more on that. So, Sarah.
Thank you for that. That's actually all the questions that we've had come through for the session. So thanks everyone for contributing to today. I don't know if I was going to pass it back over to you, Paul, just to see if you wanted to close on any note and finish the session off.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. So again, it just came to my mind when I saw, look, the one thing I forgot to explain was the difference between lectures and seminars. Lectures are in effect where you sit in that room, like in a college, and you've got the person at the front talking to you. Seminars are much more informative, smaller, usually in groups of 12. So that was one thing I just wanted to point out. But equally, as I said, look, we recognise this is a really big decision and that actually, there's lots of questions. Please, if we haven't covered them, email us, email the central team, or you can contact me as the recruitment lead if it's a much more sociology focused question. And hopefully good luck. I hope you've enjoyed the day, and have a good weekend. Sarah.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you everyone for joining today. It is the end of the main event, so just so you know, all this content is going to be live after the session today. So we'll be promoting it, publishing it on our website probably on Wednesday for all of the live sessions that have happened throughout the day. But you can of course explore all of the content that is on our website at the moment at your leisure whenever you feel like it. But yeah, that's it from us. Massive thank you for joining today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.